internet, my name is Lave and I watched Greta, which is directed by Neil Jordan, who's been in the business quite a long time. I haven't seen all of his films. Out of the ones I have seen, easily my favourite film is Interview with the Vampire. His latest is a psychological thriller about a young girl called Frances from Boston who's now living with her friend in New York whilst recovering from the loss of her mother a year earlier. One day she discovers a handbag on the subway and decides to return it directly to the owner, Greta, a lonely widow who she befriends but soon realises she's not as sweet as she appears. So it's funny, every now and then Hollywood produces two films in close proximity to each other with very similar premises, like Dante's Peak and Volcano for example, or Armageddon and Deep Impact, and later on this year we're getting a film called Ma with Octavia Spencer, and it looks like from the trailer she goes a bit crazy. Compare that with this, Greta, with an older lady where she goes a bit crazy and a bit stalkerish. I didn't really know what to expect from this one. I mean, the trailer did give away quite a lot of the premise, but I was intrigued by it and I was quite surprised that it did throw up some surprises. Sticking with the cast for now, you've got Chloë Grace Moretz, who gives a solid performance, and she is a terrific actress. It feels like she's been around forever and she's still only 21. She's not the tough, foul-mouthed warrior hit girl that we all know her from. In this, she's your everyday good-natured innocent girl who gets drawn into this web by mutual loneliness and properly gets freaked out when Greta gets a bit clingy. I also really liked her flatmate played by Maika Monroe. She's playing a character called Erica, and I thought she was going to really annoy me at the beginning of the film. She kind of says things how it is, but later on she did actually make me laugh. Like, for example, a florist turns up to give Frances some flowers from Greta, and Erica answers the door and says, "If those are for me, I'm going to dry hump you." And I thought she was quite a cool character and worked really well with Chloë Grace Moretz. But really, the real star of the show is Isabelle Huppert. Now, I'm not a big fan, or haven't seen many French cinema films. I understand she's massive in France. The only film I have seen her in was Paul Verhoeven's Elle, and she was terrific in that. Her character in this isn't as complex or as intriguing, but she certainly is really creepy. I mean, all she has to do is kind of just stand there and she creeped me out. She's awesome in this. The film takes quite a long time for it to get there, but when it does get there, it delivers. And like I say, the trailer does give away quite a lot of the plot, but having said that, it actually did work in its favour, sort of, for me, because having seen the trailer, knowing that Greta is a little bit unhinged, everything that she did in the first and second act, I was like, oh, that's not actually what it means, and I was questioning everything that she did from the off. And I do think it's interesting that one of the early lines in the film sees Frances and Erica at the cinema together, and they're watching like a crappy movie, and Frances says to Erica, she's crying, she's like, "Oh, this is what I used to do with my mum, used to go and watch crappy movies with her." And I wondered if that was the film being kind of self-aware and saying that this is kind of like a B movie, kind of crappy movie, but it was an enjoyable one, if that makes sense. Despite the film knowing that it is a bit crappy, what's surprising about it is that it actually is quite realistic and logical. I mean, Frances does everything right when she starts getting stalked by Greta. She calls the police, she informs them, and they can't do anything technically because Greta hasn't actually broken the law. So I think, I would imagine that is the case in real life, having never stalked or been stalked myself. So it is quite realistic, and it does kind of work against it when things get a little bit fantastical. For example, Greta does start stalking someone in one moment and she seems to be able to beat this person from point A to point B. So that did lose a bit of its credibility for me, but the most surprising thing about the film is that it did chuck up a couple of surprises. Like, there are a couple of moments where you thought, oh, this is blatantly what's going to happen, and then it doesn't do it. So it subverted my expectations on a couple of occasions. One in particular, which again, I don't want to say properly for spoilers, but at one moment I honestly thought, oh, the film's ruined itself. I can't believe it did that. But then 2 seconds later, I thought, oh, it's brought itself back. That's actually really, really clever. So that's my thoughts on Greta, and pause the video if you want to take a closer look at my enjoyment tracker now. At the end of the day, the film didn't set my world alight, but I think it has been solidly made. It's a bit hokey in places, but it's quite engaging and entertaining, and it has got a really great performance and character from Isabelle Huppert, who is right up there with all of the other unhinged bunny boilers like Kathy Bates and Glenn Close and the woman from The Hand That Rocks the Cradle. Her name escapes me. So there is a lot to enjoy in the film, and I think it's one of those films that if you don't know anything about it, if it's just on and you start watching it, you'd think, oh, that's pretty cool. I mean, it's only an hour and a half long. So thanks very much for watching this review. If you've seen it, let me know what you thought in the comments down below. I'm still struggling with a bit of a cold at the moment, so I haven't been reviewing a lot of stuff recently, but I have watched a couple of films on Netflix, which I plan to review in the next week or so before the big one, Avengers Endgame, at the end of this week. So keep an eye out for those, and thanks very much for watching this review. I really do appreciate it. If you can, give it a like, and don't forget to share the Lave. Merci.
Subscribe.